All right, guys, so now it is time for me to plant the Border Patrol. This is by Killer Food Plots. One of my favorite things that Killer Food Plots make, just because it can add structure, it can add bedding, it's got forage in it, but it's great for concealing yourself going to and from a blind, creating structure inside of a food plot to get those deer to travel and go the direction that you want them to, whether it's to just come across the field or get within bow range, or just to even maneuver through the field so they are in the field longer to give you more opportunities. So, all right, so this is the Candy Shop food plot. You guys know it last year as the Trump plot because it's always been the Candy Shop, but last year we just spiced it up a little bit with the Trump train right down the middle of it. So it's pretty cool, big Trump. It was like 60 yards long or more. It was huge, had a lot of planes fly by, everybody enjoyed it, and that was cool. Well, maybe Biden's taking the air out of my sails a little bit, so this year we're just going a little bit more practical and just kind of getting her done, because we aren't doing a Trump food plot this year. But what I am changing about this food plot is I'm not going to put a barrier through the middle of it. It seemed to not really change too much about this food plot. This food plot's really narrow but very long, and I'm just going to really just pour everything that I can into creating as much tonnage for the deer to browse on in this food plot, because it is only 2 acres and it is surrounded by timber and it gets flooded with deer. And when I come in here and I spend too much time putting too many barrier systems in, which don't really allow that much great forage, especially late season, it takes away from the tonnage that I could have in the food plot. So in this food plot, you can tell the one thing I'm doing different, it's got a great stand of clover underneath all this rye and winter wheat down through here. This is an area that didn't have any of the rye or winter wheat in. You can tell the clover's coming in really nicely. This time, what I'm doing with the Border Patrol, I've actually gone down each side with the disc, ran it up and down about 4 times, broke up the soil. There is some clover coming up in there. Everything else should pretty much die off even without spraying it. I'm going to go through by hand. I don't have a bucket with me, so I'm just going to do it right out of the bag. When it's a strip like this that's like 6 feet across or less, I like to do it by hand, because even like the Earthway hand spreader that I've got, it throws too wide. Even if you just crank it down and you're barely trying to throw it, it's just easier to calibrate with your hands. So I'm going to go through and throw this one, and what I'll do is come in with the roller, or I'll come back in with the disc and just do a disc over the top of it just to fluff it over, or I'll come through and roll it and press it down in the soil. But as you can tell, I did a strip down each side. I left the middle wide open instead of just a strip down the middle that I could walk on either side of. This time I'm actually going to have a nice little tunnel going down through there. I am adding more structure in and around the redneck to really break it up a little bit more. Last year I did that. I literally had deer come in within like 5 to 10 yards of the blind multiple times while I was hunting with the bow, so I really did enjoy that. So I'm trying to do that again, just build enough structure around that blind, just really breaks it up really good. So I do leaf blow a trail right back through here down through the woods, so I can slip down through the woods, and then I'll come right through here. We'll have a nice tunnel right through the Border Patrol. So I can get right up there in the redneck. Pretty simple, pretty easy. I'm gonna get spreading the seed. Looky there. All right, so now I'm to the big redneck plot is what we call it. So this year changed the design in this food plot a little bit. Last year I changed it a little bit from the year before. I'm always critiquing it and getting it better based on the deer patterns and how they come in and access this food plot. This last year it worked really well. It worked even better than the year before, and I'm hoping it's going to be the same trend as this year. This year I have changed it a little bit on some of my cross-sectional barriers that are coming through this food plot that's going to allow the deer to come from one side to the other. They all are going to intersect pretty close within about a 20-yard range of the redneck there. So if I am bow hunting, I've got a nice little easy chip shot. One thing that I am doing for some of the exterior walls like this one, you can see I've got my chicken pens and stuff back here behind me. I have widened the width of this and doubled it this year, so it's going to give it more structure. It's going to last longer. It creates a thicker and more solid barrier from the house and everything there, and it allows me to come in and access this food plot undetected. So I do have the spreader for some of these double width areas, so it is going to save me some time as I go through and seed those, and the rest of it I will put it in a bucket and hand seed them if they're only like 6 foot wide or less. These are looking to be about probably 8 to 10 feet wide on average right now. So let me get planting, then I'll kind of go to the center of the food plot and try to show you without the barriers being grown up why I planted them where I did and how the deer are going to intersect. And then as these things grow up, then you're really going to see it. This is harder than you think. Shut up! But this is definitely harder than you think. Trying to hand calibrate this, not throw too hard, and get the seed to throw within the disc area. So I have now put it in 2.5 gallon bucket. This is a more narrow width one that comes right to the redneck. I planted this one not as wide because I'm not going to be mad if they cross through this barrier. It's okay if they do. The other ones I planted double width to really try to deter them from crossing through and to travel down. If they did cross through this one, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to walk through and still come within 20 yards of the redneck this way. Or if they're going to cross through this way, they're still going to hit that 20 yards. So I'm not mad if they cross through here, but it is going to direct them a little bit more towards the center of the food plot to give them more time in the food plot, more chances at harvesting. Alright, so I had Dad come out. Dad helped me film here just a little bit, and I have finished up planting the border patrol. I told you guys, like I would, to come right here to the center of food plot and try to show you exactly what I did. The area around this redneck kind of has a tree island here. I like it. It helps break up the redneck. What I've done this year is I've now planted the barrier system all the way around it. Normally I would have a structure in front of it and structure going down kind of back to the house that we can walk down, but with it being so close to the house, normally you can tell if there's deer out here or not. And if there's not, or if there is, there's not like there's that much to walk from. You got 50 yards to walk, so we can get on the back downhill side, because we'll scout and glass before we come in here, and we can slip in that way. But what we're doing is by creating this barrier all the way around this redneck blind, it's like a huge thick island that we can put between us and the deer if we have to access this or slip out of here while there are deer in this food plot. So I've extended that. Normally there's a big long line of border patrol right down through here. The reason is because I always like to break up a large food plot. I like to have the deer where they can't see through the whole thing. It allows them to come in, especially a buck during season. He's looking for a doe. He wants to scout out the food plot. If he comes in on this back side and he looks all the way across the food plot like he can now, he can quickly deter that there is nothing in this food plot that's to his interest, because he's looking for a doe and he's going to back out. Well, by putting a barrier through here, it's piqued his curiosity. He knows there's food plots on the other side. He knows there might be a doe over there. So what do? Is you come down through the food plot, hopefully walk right within bow range of this redneck, and that's the end of that story. So what I like to also do is I like to put directional barriers that's going to direct them through the food plot. So instead of doing a hard line right through the middle this year, I have realized that when I do a square line compared to where the deer come in, it's like a square facing wall facing them. They will usually find a way to go through, and they'll start making a trail, and they're going to get through it. Now, if you put a diagonal wall compared to where they usually come in, and it's not a harsh solid wall right up against them, they'll usually walk down along the side of it. So this year I've come in, I've put more angles compared to where the deer normally come out into this food plot. Here is the one that I just planted. This one's only about 6 foot wide. It runs diagonal. They come in that back corner. Instead of a hard wall that would be paralleling them, they'd have to walk right through, and they'd usually bust through it. Instead, I've got a slanted one here that they can angled barrier that they can come in and walk right down to. And what it's basically doing is directing them back into the middle of the food plot, allowing just more time to hunt the animal. And when it does that, it also is going to direct it within 20 yards of the redneck. Now, I only did this one 6 foot like I talked before, because if they do bust through, guess what? Only 20 yards, 25 yards max shot from the redneck there. Let me show you these other two that I've got here. I didn't do any barrier systems around the exterior of the food plot because I have done a lot of timber stand improvement and edge feathering, so there's a lot of structure there. A deer now cannot stand back in the woods and see into the food plot because it's nice and thick. What I've done here is there's a big barrier right through here. It's another 10 to 12 foot barrier that comes through. It's solid wall. And then I've got one coming through this back side too. So the more interior ones that are made to turn the deer, I decided to add more structure to them this year, so it does deter them even more from crossing through them. So the added width is just going to create a bigger barrier for the deer. Again, they are at an angle compared to where the deer naturally kind of come in, so it's going to be easier to turn them versus them hitting a solid wall compared to where they come in. So I've got a nice wide one here, and then a nice wide one here, and it's also opened up this top of the food plot where it's much wider than it was before. When I had the dissection barrier that went right down through the middle, it made 2 small food plots on each side. With these being more on the outside, there is a larger feeding area in here, which I think the deer are going to be more comfortable and just piling in and coming right to the middle of the food plot. But everything directs right down here within 20 yards of the blind. So pretty excited about that. It works out really well. It works all the time. This is one of the easiest things you can do, is buy a bag of this, plant it in your food plot. It creates structure so the deer feel nice and secure, even if they're within 150 yards of your house or a road, and it directs them through a food plot, allows you access in and out of your food plot. There's so many benefits from having the Border Patrol. If you guys are interested in checking them out, just go to killerfoodplots.com. We have a discount code for you guys, THG 10%. So that's what it is, THG 10%, and it's a percent sign. And that's it, guys. Leave comments down below if you're excited about this. I'll update you guys as this is growing in, because then you'll really be able to see the difference. Give a big thumbs up, and until next time, have a better than average day. Won't you tickle it?